Ooh, and we're live. What's up, folks? Everybody, welcome back to another episode of Get a Load of This Trucking Podcast. As always, this is your host, Cameron Pesci, owner of Valley Trucking Insurance and one of the co-founders of this podcast. With me today, I got special co-host, Thomas Comstock. Tommy, what's happening?
Oh, trying to do the thing, having a good day.
Another day in the life of sales. I feel like sales is so up and down, and I was reviewing, at least for my clients and our clients, actually for our agency, there's a lot of people that went out of business last year.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me. And for a salesperson, that's not good because we live on commission. So that's not fun, which is, I think, part of the reason this podcast was born is like, how can we bring education and value and insight and help truckers stay in business? Because then that helps everybody and helps the economy and keeps America moving. And here we are, right?
Yeah. It's been a fun little journey. What's it going on now? Like 8 months?
For the podcast, I think we hit 12, man. I think it's over a year now.
Jeez.
Yeah, man. It started with an idea. Yeah, we're going to release a weekly tip via, I don't even know, to a podcast. And it's been awesome, man. The guests that we've had, it's been amazing. I'm super excited. And I think it's bringing value. The feedback's awesome. And so we're going to keep it rolling.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun.
I think it's good. So one of the things, our guest today, in light of kind of me doing this recent research project and just kind of observing folks going out of business and stuff like that, is I really think it's important for entrepreneurs, business owners, individuals in general to have multiple streams of income and multiple buckets and things that safety nets or however you want to frame it, of like security there. And so you need to bring in money or have financial freedom in multiple forms. And I think truck company owners, a big way that, a big reason a lot of them are doing it is to make money. It's a lifestyle. It is to create freedom. It is to have control over their schedule, but ultimately get to a position where they can retire. And my buddy, our special guest on today, Steven Wylie, I met, and I look up to him, and he's done a lot in the real estate industry. And I think that's a way that a lot of people, there's opportunity to make income via rentals, flips, finance, hard money lending. I mean, there's a multitude of ways to make additional streams of income with the income you're earning off your business. And then now you're starting to leverage money, which then makes money, which creates more freedom. And so everyone, let's welcome my buddy, Steven Wylie. Wylie, how are you?
I'm well. How you guys doing? Thanks for letting me be on your show.
Man, we're so good. And we're hoping, I know the guests are tuning in because they're like, how do I make more money? And how do I insulate myself from the economy and the bad economy and like the ups and downs of trucking? And I think this is a great opportunity. And the story that I think, Steven, we're going to dive into today is like you've been through the ups, you've been through the downs, you've been through very, very high and all very, very low, and now you're kind of back to an even place. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I've been around long enough to see all the good and bad stuff, and make my mistakes, and hopefully make some good calls along the way. It's it's an adventure. Like all entrepreneurial and trucking is probably similar. A lot of business is all very similar. There's the good times and the bad times, and you learn a lot from getting your ass kicked. And if you don't, then you're stupid. And you shouldn't.
Some of us are. And you know what? Is stupid sometimes works. It's just very expensive, right?
It's expensive. Well, the problem is we've all been stupid. So there's,
Yes, sir. Stupid is the stupid does. Here we are.
The working those. All right.
Right. Hey, Steve, you got ties back into the trucking community, right?
My grandpa drove, I'm not sure how, because I was young, but he drove fuel trucks all over town. Awesome. And I think regionally, Washington State, Idaho, Oregon, maybe California, and Utah, I think. But yeah, he drove for a company called PIE, retired with them, and never got to like ride in his truck, but I just knew that that's what Grandpa did.
Yeah.
And I always in my, like you have your like you know what? If the whole shooting show goes down, I'd get my CDL and just long haul it, just disappear into America. You know, I could dig that vibe. I have huge respect for guys and gals who do that. So.
Oh, it's a huge sacrifice, and none of us would have any equipment or housing or clothing or like
Nothing.
the economy halts. If trucking stops, the economy stops, world stops turning, people start dying because you got to think, and people don't understand like the medical chain and like the providing vaccinations or medications or medical equipment to folks. It all comes on a truck, right? Everything. And so, yeah, I've got an immense amount of respect. And I mean, that's what we do every single day. Thomas and I are involved in the trucking communities every single day. And man, we get passionate about it. We love it. So, and that, part two, I think a lot of it's education. And that was the whole premise of what we wanted to bring. And I think that these truck drivers and stuff, I think an area of education is how do I acquire wealth or land and start to expand my opportunity outside of just trucking. Like they can use it as a catapult or a catalyst to go do other things. Let's talk a little bit about your background just in real estate in general, what even kind of led you down that path. And then let's talk about the early days, what got you to this point. And I'm sure there's a lot of cool stories we'll uncover in there. So.
Yeah, I grew up. My dad was entrepreneurial and started buying rental property when I was like 10, 11 years old. And, I was back when you're in Spokane, Washington, at least, where you could buy a house for $8,000, $9,000, $10,000. These were not houses you wanted to live in, but you could buy them, fix them up, keep them. And so Dad started doing that. He also started another business that he built at the same time as he did that, which, similar to like a trucking gig where like it's your business, you're growing this business, but he also had his real estate going at the same time. And then at some point in the early 90s, sold that business and actually paid off a bunch of his real estate. And so that I grew up kind of immersed in that world. So it wasn't a big stretch for me to go start doing that. I graduated, I was homeschooled through high school. So I graduated my junior year and I had my real estate license by the time I was 19, I think it was. And so I started just doing, realtor things, which I'm not a huge fan of being a realtor myself, but it's a great way to be in the industry and find deals. And I learned a lot through that. You meet all kinds of folks, other realtors, and you get deals. And I would help my dad buy and sell stuff. And then when I was, I think 21 or 22, I bought my first rental house, and I just started buying rental houses. And the interesting thing about that is I was young, so I didn't, you don't know what fits you, what suits you. I'm a very creative person. I'm a recording artist as well as everything else. I do screenwriting and just shot a short film, and I have a lot of passion in that direction. And so there are things in real estate that I had to slowly realize, oh, that's not for me. And so that's a big part actually as you look at investing. You got to know, where does this actually fit in my wheelhouse? Because you can end up doing something that makes you friggin' miserable. Even if you make a few bucks, it may not be worth it. So that's something I've been learning over the years. So I owned rental property on and off over the last 20 years. I had about at my most I had about 10 or 12 houses. And then in my mid 20s, I started going into developing new construction. I partnered with my best friend, a guy named Todd Rothrock, who I'm still best friends with. And we went and started building houses, developing land. And that was much more appealing to my personality. While I still had my rental houses, we did some renovated old buildings into some condos downtown Spokane. I did some stuff on the west side in Seattle. And then, young, semi-stupid in some respects, where we just kind of, our Walt Disney got bigger in our pocketbook. And then in 08, 07, things started tipping. There's a great Warren Buffett quote. He says, you find out who's swimming naked when the tide goes out. and the tide went out, and we didn't have any shorts on. Which just means we were leveraged. We had we owed millions of dollars on stuff, and then suddenly they weren't. Property values tanked, and so you owe $12 million on something, and it's worth $9 million, and that's a problem that you can't fix until unless you can weather the storm, which we frankly couldn't. So we at that juncture, I think I was about 29, 30 years old. We went bankrupt, lost. It was a huge education, very painful. And in hindsight, probably didn't have to go bankrupt, but didn't know better, didn't have people telling us otherwise. And so started back at square one, and market did a full on reset, and I actually moved to Nashville and started working on being a songwriter and kind of following up on that passion for myself. And I spent a few years there, loved every minute of it. Concluded that, like many things, that's a road you really got to devote your life to. And I probably would have been better off starting a lot younger. Music business is a tough gig to have a family in. And so my wife and I realized this is probably not going to be something we want to devote our family's existence to, because it's a tough road. But it was awesome. Still love music, still love songwriting, all that stuff.
Well, and you made a ton of great connections over there. I'm actually headed to Nashville here this next week, so I'm excited to get down, experience some of the culture and the live music and just the environment that it puts you in. So I'm pumped. Is there any place that I have to go? We're staying at the Gaylord.
Opryland?
Yep, Opryland. Yep. Where do you recommend kind of exploring down there?
Well, you got to hit Broadway. You got to hit the Ryman. All that downtown Nashville stuff, and then if you can, Country Music Hall of Fame. Although I've never been there, but everyone says you should go there.
It's a tourist thing, I'm guessing.
It's a good touristy thing to do. You got to hit Broadway, where you hit all the honky tonks, and Nashville is so much bigger than it was even 10 years ago. It's insane. I would bounce down to Lynchburg, I think it is, see the Jack Daniels distillery, and Franklin, Tennessee.
Now you're talking.
That's where we lived. And Franklin's a Civil War era town, cool history stuff, beautiful, beautiful area. I love Tennessee. Middle Tennessee is a beautiful area. I'd like to visit, go see friends there, but really cool place.
So then you did not do real estate down there or buy?
No, I almost did. I started venturing that way, and I thought, you know what? Let's get back near family, get back near friends, and it was the right call. So in 2014, we came back, and slowly, I just, not totally meaning to, I just started buying houses again because the deals were there, and it was something I knew. And when something feels right, and that's actually something to think about as anyone's looking at investing, you got to know in your guts that this is going to really be the right call. Otherwise, you're just doing something because it's cool. So it's, over that time, I bought more houses, and then just recently sold them all. And I'm kind of in a momentary lull, and looking at actually potentially picking up some more in a different strategy, which is be more of a buy and hold type.
Okay. And see, I think that's a good topic or point you bring up is strategies. And like initially, you saw, your dad probably bought, hold, and rented out for long term, I'm guessing. Mm-hmm. Nowadays, though, you've got short term, Airbnb, and you've always had flips. You've always had, even on the hard money side, like you can act as the bank and lend money to people that actually want to buy, fix, flip, and then you get money back out of that. What is your favorite strategy? And then what was like one of the main lessons you learned from your early career to doing the property development, and then now where you've reset, because you've gained a ton of wisdom along the way. So I think that you can provide some insight to folks that are starting to explore this opportunity mentally.
Yeah, I think the big thing is know the environment you're in, and then ask yourself and read what other people who are smarter than you have to say about what is the current economic vibe, and then what's the play within that environment. So, for the last 4 years, fixing and flipping houses was a very viable, smart play to make money. It's high tax bracket money, but it's money, and it was, and in a lot of cases there was a lot to be made, and a lot of people have done well. Now, whether or not they play well out of that, because the environment is changing right now. That's what we're observing with interest rates going up and inflation as a problem that has to be wrangled. Then you have to look and say, okay, well, financing is not as favorable. So, and people aren't buying and selling houses like they were. And it's been pretty, and this is an interesting moment to talk about this, because if we were talking about this 10 months ago, that's the fickleness you learn over time. And it's something I've been wary of, is everybody was a genius 10 months ago. Everybody knew.
Just making money on money, cash on cash deals all day.
Here's how you do it. You borrow money. It doesn't matter what the interest rate is, because you're going to flip that thing in 3 months and you're going to make blah, 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 blah. And duh. And that, and it's true till it isn't. And once it's not true, it's a swift kick in the junk, and it hurts. And that's, and so right now, that's where we're at. All of a sudden, there's a lot of investors that are getting some weak knees, and they're staring at these deals, and they're staring at their private money loans and their short-term interest rates, and they're thinking, shit, what am I going to do? I don't know if I can flip this. And they're smart too. That means they're at least got enough wherewithal to know that. And so you want to think, in my opinion, it's time to find deals and hold them. And rents are very good. The rental market is solid. And so right now, as of September 30th, 2022, that's the most appealing strategy. But if you're going to participate as an investor in real estate for the next 10, 20 years, 30 years, whatever your trajectory is on life and your investments, then you need to know these are the seasons of real estate. It is what it is. And you can complain about it. You can be mad about it. It just is what it is. Get over it, figure out how it plays, and participate in a manner that's going to be to your advantage. And for folks who are in the truck biz, and doing, whether you're an owner operator or you're running a larger company, you are probably collecting capital that you need to figure out how to allocate and invest. So you're looking at the stock market, you're looking at all the different things that are available to you. And it's a wonderful position to be in, because no matter, in fact, a down real estate market is better for you, because you have money to park somewhere and you want to buy things when they're not popular. And because you don't have to care about appreciation. If you want to play the appreciation game and flip and all that, well, good for you. That's great. It can work, but now is not going to be a good time. Maybe a year from now, maybe 5 years from now. I don't know. That we'll all find out. But the beauty of being in a position where you are a successful business owner and you have income, and you don't, real estate's not going to make or break your life. It's a vehicle for growing wealth. Then you are trying to buy and hold, and your whole goal is to systemize that in a manner that makes your life good. And so that's when you ask the questions, am I going to be a landlord, or is this a stupid thing for me to do? And I hire that out and have a property manager. All those things you'll start weighing out. But right now, in my opinion, if you're a business owner and you have income to invest, real estate is a pretty safe spot because as long as people are renting houses and you can get in an equitable, strong position, it's just a good place to play. Nothing's moving.
Hey guys, I gotta cut in real quick. Lawnmower people just showed up, and I'm not gonna be able to hear you guys through the noise, so I'm gonna back out so you guys don't hear all the lawnmower and shit too. I will say one quick thing though. You learned your lesson from 2008. You got out before the crash this time.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, I'll talk to you guys later.
Later, Thomas.
Good to see you.
And I think, Steven, like what's cool about that, and like my mind goes to, and as a business owner, in fact, I just got with my sales team this morning and talked about a business plan, whether it's a personal business plan, an actual business plan, an execution of like a strategy in real estate, trucking, whatever, vertical. It's
Right.
having the vision, creating the business plan, doing the research on the market, seeking out advice from those that do know, or at least paying attention to what's going on so that you can adapt and hopefully it fits with your long-term strategy. So then you can adapt your goals to help achieve those things. Is that something you had done early on? Is create a business plan, or was it kind of all up in your head, or did you write out goals? Did you create like, hey, I want to get X amount of doors to create this amount of income and retire at this level? What was your process?
All those things, and in various differing ways over the last 20 years. So my first 10 years in this, I was pretty hardcore because goals are legit. If you write something down for the year,
Right.
You will be blown away how often that comes into being. And you might not even look at your goals for 6 months, and then you're like, holy
Yeah.
crap, 3 out of 5 of these things I've done. And so that stuff's, I've used all that. And I also am a big fan of kind of having a broad kind of core value of like, the thing that gets lost in capitalistic pursuits, and I'm a avid capitalist, is quality of life. And so I always try to balance my desire to be a goal-setting person with, are these things actually going to make my life better, or is it just a big thing because I want to do a big thing? Because I like to do big stuff. It's fun. But I've also had to dial myself back and be like, you know what, dude? You don't need 50 houses. That's going to actually make your life miserable. It sounds great. It feels good to think about it. But at the end of the day, you know what's going to be better for me is probably about 15 or 20. Or for you, it might be 5. Or for another guy, it might be 9. But you got to really dial in and know that it's not about being the biggest, the best. It's about finding that sweet spot that's going to really work. And that's a thing that comes over time. I think when you're younger, it's easier to just be like big idea person.
Yeah.
And then you realize,
And part of what I talk about too with my folks, and I've done this in the past, is being well-rounded on your approach. So you pay attention to your life and what are important. And if you were to have the best year ever, what are the things that would need to be done? And that could be health. That could be spiritual growth. That could be mental growth. That could be relationship building. It certainly is going to be business savvy and financially motivated in a certain sense. And then in your day to day and your overall vision, your overall goals or rocks or whatever you want to call them, does it meet that criteria? And if it hits your schedule, is it enhancing one of those things that you want to do? And it has to, like, you got to be diversified and you got to be well balanced. So I know, and like, I've got to spend time with my family and my wife. That's important to me. I've got to spend time now on my future, which is retirement, which is also your family, but it's now financially motivated. So that kind of dictates that flow. Also your personal sanity, or for you, you've got your passions, which is screenwriting and music and all that kind of stuff. So like, it's a well balanced. You know, what's funny as we're recording this, I literally just had, and I won't show the front, but a rent check dropped off for
Hey.
So for the timing of that, so a check just showed up, and it's like, it's good timing. But I thought, so for folks, I think the scary part for a lot of people too is like they will research and do analysis, and like, what do they call that? Analysis to paralysis, right? Like they just like want to know every single thing, and they're just going to keep researching, keep wanting to know the ins and outs without actually doing it, right? At a certain point, you have to do it, and you just got to take the step, and you got to learn. You're going to have to learn the lessons along the way. But to someone that has those barriers, like what's your, I guess, advice just to like get in the game, like save up X amount, make sure you have X amount like that you can afford in the bank. Like what's your what would be that advice to a new person?
Yeah, find the closest you can get to what you think works, and then jump. Like and know that it's going to feel surreal, because if you've never bought an investment property or a piece of real estate outside of that's not your own home, it's kind of an interesting moment. I mean, I've done it so many times, but I still actually get like, I'm buying a house right now. And I don't totally know what I'm going to do with it because the market's changing, but I know based on my experience, well, this is going to work. But that's when you like have to embrace that kind of, my grandpa would always say, he'd say, Steve, do something, even if it's wrong, just do something, because you can't not do something. You're alive, and so that is there is the Indiana Jones moment where you got to step and hope that it looks as good as it is when you land.
I love it. Yeah. And I think, and it's cool because a lot of these folks took the risk starting their own trucking company.
Exactly.
Right? Or even saying, like, take it even before that is like, I'm going to go get a CDL. Like, that's a moment. Like, that's an investment in yourself and like for your future and the possibility. So I think folks just need to be comfortable and confident and just have faith in themselves that it will work out. And I mean, from your story, you took it really big and grandiose plans of scale and development, and you ended up filing bankruptcy. But you were able to do that and then work your way back into it, and hopefully learned along the way, which you did obviously, but like, hey, I learned from my failures, right? I failed forward. I know what I'm going to do and what I'm not going to do. I know what I'm going to pay attention to and not now, and like not get blinded by some of these things, and just learn from it, from your past experience. And I'm guessing you had mentors, and you were probably actively seeking advice and like trying to talk to folks that have done it before you. I mean, at least that's what I would do. So,
well, and I will say this to all the guys and gals out there who are, you're active in your business. Nothing you do in real estate as an investor will be as scary, risky, or adventurous as what you're already doing. And so just if it's something that's interesting to you, just know it's not as intense as what you're doing. And so hopefully that makes it even more interesting to you.
Hey, let's talk about the investment of time. So, and you kind of touched on it a little bit, like, hey, I can't have 50 doors, but I might be able to have 15, or I might be able to do 20, but I got to have a property management company. Like, when you look at this, because you're experienced, how much time, because some of these guys are running a business, they have cash, but they might not have time, but they know they want to get into it. What would you caution? What would you say, hey, this is kind of what I would prep for? And in my experience, this much, I guess we'll call it doors. These many doors will take this much time. And that's where I think the diversification comes in for folks that want to be the bank, that want to buy property notes, that want to actually buy and hold property, or that want to flip property. There's different amounts of time that allocate to each of these, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the big part is zeroing in on where you fit, because that's going to decide your time. If you want to start looking at private notes, private lending, of your own money, you're going to want to really do your road work and be detailed and thorough. And you're going to want to know that's going to take more of your time. If you're just looking to buy a rental property and hold it as a place to park equity and maybe get a little cash flow while you pay that asset off over time, that's a pretty low time commitment. Especially if you have a property manager, just know a property manager will never care as much as you. They will cost you more than you would want to pay. But it's a passive investment. And so if you can view it that way, and maybe you got the bandwidth to to do your own management, because, if you got 1, 2, 3 doors, then it can be actually pretty easy if everybody's paying. It can be very simple. So that's where you'll feel it out. But there are a lot of different niches in there. So if you go certain routes, you're really going to want to be educated and talk to people, learn the stuff, because once you get out of the simple buying and holding a long-term real estate asset, that's a different gig. There are guys who literally eat and breathe private money 50 hours a week. So that kind of shows you how far down the rabbit hole you can go. But on the just rental property side, it can be a pretty low time consuming thing. And aside from when something goes sideways and you're dealing with an eviction type situation. And that's
you're getting support from legal, and like you can pay someone to clean out the house. Like it just costs money. It's you either got time or money. You're going to trade one or the other. What are you willing to trade? Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, I think that's awesome. And it's funny and actually kind of surprising. I would have thought the hard money route would have been less time commitment than the actual property owning and holding of the properties. Cause I feel like, well, you got the tenants, you got the, screening process, you got turnover, evictions, clean, like all this kind of stuff. I didn't realize that, like where the hard money is, like, no, you actually have to do the groundwork, know what you're doing, like, that whole bit. So,
yeah. And I would say on the private money side, if say you got 200 grand and you wanted to lend that out at 10%, that can be pretty simple once you're done. Once it's in locked in, then there's no renters, there's no landlord tenant law to deal with, there's no evictions. It's a foreclosure if something goes bad. But yeah, you're right. It's crickets and you're just cashing a check. But the problem with private money is it's usually not very long term. And so that money ends up rolling over because the interest rates are higher and people don't want to have to pay on a 10% note. Now that's all a discussion to be had as interest rates change, but that's why I would say that it's because private money tends to be shorter term money.
Yep. Well, and a lot of it too, the higher interest, even where you're doing the hard money lending on flips, I've seen get up to 15 to 18 to 20% or an interest only loan for a short duration of time. And then, and you're right, there's a lot of transactions through the year on that money.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. There's a lot of work. There's a lot that goes into the taxes. There's a lot, everything at that point. So now for folks that are getting into it and we're not legal, we're not attorneys, we're not CPAs, we're not going to give any advice there. But I see the most common route is people create LLCs and then they put the rentals in the LLC. Is that a strategy you've done in the past, or what did you do?
I have all my rentals in an LLC.
One.
Just one. You can do multiples. It's your own tolerance or need for risk aversion. An LLC is just liability protection.
Yeah.
This is its ultimate purpose. And, if you really decide to jump in and say, you're like, I need 20, 30 doors. That's what I can do with my money. It's a great thing to do. Well, you might want to create 3 LLCs and then a managing LLC that manages all 3 to give yourself multiple layers of protection and anonymity. Because, I don't necessarily want everybody to know what I own or,
Yep.
They might decide I'm an asshole. So
most of all the attorneys, right?
They will find you.
Yeah, they have a way of doing that. Hey, let's break down just a simple few-step process. And this is obviously subject to the market where you're at, the availability of housing, and like the desire at the time for people to be buying, picking up properties. But what would be the steps of like, hey, I need 10 grand, or hey, I need 20 grand, or hey, I need 10% or 20%. Like, what should that process look like to just get one rental? I'm gonna go buy a rental. I need to save up to get this. I need to get a note on, like, whatever. Like, what does that look like?
I would look at what you want to invest. Say you like, hey, I got 50 grand and I don't want to put it in the stock market. Then the real question you need to ask and the math you need to do is, in your area, wherever that is, what are rents and what interest rate are you looking at? That's it. Because at the end of the day, the rent needs to cover your payment, your taxes, and your insurance, period. And if it doesn't, it's a horrible idea. Don't do it. Don't let anybody talk you into like, well, you're just feeding it $100 a month. That's stupid. Don't do that. And so it's that simple equation you need to look at, and then you can decide, well, 50 grand can buy me can be, almost 20% down on a $300,000 house. Is the $250,000 note going to be covered by the rent? That's your question. Or maybe you're in an area where you can buy a rental house for 100 grand. That'd be sweet. Then you just got to know rents are 1,500 there. Awesome. That's a bargain. You're going to at least clear a few $100 a month, and you'll be able to cover any stuff that goes sideways while you're paying off. Because the thing you really want to do if you're buying and holding is you want to be paying off the debt. You want to own that asset free and clear so that that's cash flow for your retirement. That's a rent check that's actually feeding you every month when you're in your older age and you don't want to be driving a truck or running a business. And so that's why you have 10 doors or 20 doors, is so you're making 10, 20,000 pre-tax a month, and having a great life that's relatively free. So that's the math equation, is what is the payment I'm looking at? Because that, depending on the marketplace, if you got 50 grand, well, maybe that's money to go down on 2 houses. You put 25 down on 2 houses. And it depends on what the financing is. If you got credit unions that you like in your area, they're often great places to talk to, because they like to invest locally. They like to be a part of the community in that way, whereas like a Bank of America really doesn't give a rat's ass about you. And
they have no local locations, right? You drive around the town trying to find.
Don't even get me on that soapbox. But, local banks, local credit unions, they are great places to talk to, because if you have good credit, they're going to be a great tool for you. And then obviously there is private money everywhere, but it's expensive and it's not usually very long term. The max you'll on a blue moon find is maybe 5 years. And maybe in a miracle, you'll get some guy or gal who's like, yeah, I'll carry a note for 15 years because I don't care. I just want my 10%. And there are people like that. But in the private money world, there's not a lot of people like that. That's a mom and pop type situation. And if you find it, great, use it. But that's the math you're looking at. And it's a pretty simple equation. And then you can kind of figure out what's best for you. Do you want to park all your money in one house and feel safe that way? Go for it. Or do you want to divvy it up? If you got 200 grand, can you divide that up and buy 5 houses, 10 houses? Just depends on where you're living. What's
the recommendation? Because I think people still have to think worst case is like, hey, the rents all take a dive. Something happens or whatever. Like, you still have to be able to afford the mortgage on 5 locations. Do you have a number in the bank that you want to save towards that'll cover like an emergency fund, or like what's that look like to somebody?
It's whatever gives you peace at night, whatever helps you sleep. If it's 100 grand, God bless you. If it's 10 grand, go rim ride that deal. If it's, everyone's got a different threshold, and that's going to be a very personal question that each person can only answer for themselves, because what's true for me and what's true for you are going to be two different things.
Yeah. No, that makes sense.
Everybody has a different capacity for risk. And at the end of the day, nobody ever wants to acknowledge this, but it is the truth, is there are certain shit shows you don't escape. There's no way to have enough money in the bank. And fortunately, in my lifetime, that's never happened. And I don't know that it's even happened since maybe the Great Depression for some folks. But those things can happen. And I always remind myself of that. Like, I want to be risk averse to a degree, whatever a degree suits me. But there are things that can happen that I can't control, and no matter what I did. And that's just something you got to, But the truth is, if you're in business already, you know this, and real estate's the least of your worries.
You're a warrior already. You already know.
You're already in. You're battling blizzards and hurricanes and tornadoes. This is really small potatoes.
You're in. That's awesome. I think that's a ton of good information, and I think hopefully folks are grabbing some good nuggets out of there. What's some resources? Bigger Pockets is a resource that I've kind of tapped into a little bit. But what are some resources where folks can go to if they just want to learn a little bit about investing in real estate, and just in general, who do you recommend them following? Follow whatever.
I'm terrible with that stuff.
Are you? You just find people to talk to.
My big thing, because there's national voices, there's, cults of personality, and they know things and they're smart. But nothing beats local. And to me, it's go shake hands with some realtors. Go figure out who owns real estate and buy them lunch. And you never know. I mean, the big thing, and this, Cameron, is networks. It's relationships. And you will never be able to replicate the value you'll get from forging real relationships in your local community of real estate realtors, investors. You're competing in some respect, but you're also in the trenches together, because when it goes bad for everyone. And when it goes good, it's good for everyone. And you want to see your friends succeed. So I have a lot of really good friends in this industry, and they're my guys. And so I listen to them. And so that's my big encouragement, is find those voices in your community that you really feel like you can trust. And keep your pulse, your hand on the pulse nationally. Read the Wall Street Journal, pay attention. But that's my thing. Find your local people and get tight. Treat them with love and respect, and listen. And you'll get a wealth of, and not just that, you'll get great friends out of it too.
Yeah, no, I echo that. And you're right. Pick up the phone, drop by, stop in, show up at an event, go to an association, whatever. You just got to get involved in some way. I think in a sense too, the truckers have their finger on the pulse of the economy, because they're the ones that move goods.
They're the pulse of the economy.
They are the pulse. Absolutely. They make America move. So they kind of have a little bit of insight into what's going on with manufacturing, building, what's moving in the different lanes, that kind of stuff too. So, and a lot of groups that the trucking community is involved in have a lot of economists, just as real estate does, that they will listen to. No one has a crystal ball, but there's still good indicators that people and folks should pay attention to. So it's just kind of listen and talk to people. I think that's awesome.
Sweet.
So what's any predictions for you on this upcoming year and coming out of with the high interest rates and stuff? What do you think is going to happen?
No clue as to what's going to happen. I don't feel like it's going to go to the dogs necessarily, but it could. And so my posture is to be ready to find deals that I can hold on to.
And is that coming up with cash and having cash available?
Yeah, being positioned and maybe talk to your bank, your lenders, your credit union, and just know, okay, this is kind of what a non-owner loan is going to cost me right now. It's 15, 20% down, whatever it is, and think, hey, there's some distressed situations. There's people who are now in a bad spot, and they're going to need to get rid of a house. And and that, you hate that they're going to have a bad time, but that's what happens in these kinds of conditions. And so my posture is be ready to find distress situations and end up being the remedy to that situation. And for myself, be ready to hang on to some things for a while and let it ride. And just know that that's not going to go too badly.
Yeah. No, and I think historically, and if you play the long game and you've got that in mind, even with the stock market, even with anything, you have waves. It's cyclical. It's going to drop, and all of a sudden you lost a ton of wealth, you know what I mean, on paper, but then it comes back up, and it's like, okay, I'm fine again. And if you're doing this long-term for retirement or towards retirement or to pass on to as a legacy, like that's what you got to keep in mind. It's not the real-time moves or the waves that are coming through.
Exactly.
So, yeah. Cool, man. Well, thank you so much. A ton of great information. It's helped me. I know it'll help folks that are listening to this. Is there anything that you want to share? Is there any parting wisdom, or if you had one piece of advice, aside from talking to the local folks? I think that's awesome. Find a mentor, learn from those that do it. But
no, thanks for letting me be on your show, dude. This is fun. I will say there's a guy I like. I just picked up his book. This is my Dr. Leo Marvin moment. No, I did not write the book.
Let's do it.
But I'm a huge fan of Ryan Holiday, and he has written a series of books on Stoic virtue, and he has one on this new one just came out on discipline. His first book is tattooed on my arm. The Obstacle is the Way.
Hey, I actually read that book this last year.
Did you? I love Ryan's work. I've actually hired his time a couple times just to improve on life. And he's a really good guy, but I think this is his 5th book in this particular series, and I think they're great life wisdom. So there you go. Ryan Holiday, find his stuff. You will find it.
And for the truckers out there, they do have the audio books.
Yes.
So listen to it on the road. I think when you're driving, it can be very valuable. You can learn how to make money and diversify wealth while driving and making money. I mean, it's a beautiful thing you can do.
Win-win.
I love it. Okay. Steven, I appreciate your time, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Okay. All right, everyone, you can find this on all the popular channels. You can follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, get a load of this trucking podcast. Come join the group on Facebook. There's a lot of good content shared, a lot of good interactions, and folks just helping each other. So tune in next time. Thank y'all.